The other day, I was
Yep.
looking at Facebook,
Mm.
and
Oof.
I know, well, first mistake. No, it wasn't. This is not a terrible Facebook story, but I'm looking at Facebook, right? And an evangelical friend of mine from college had posted an article entitled "Ancient Structure Emerges from Mount Ararat's Glacier, Discovered by Eastman Archaeology."
Still an evangelicalist friend of yours
Yes,
hasn't
still
left
an
the fold.
evangelical.
Okay, okay,
Yes.
okay, okay.
Now, for any Christian or former Christian, we know exactly what this article is about to discuss, but does this set anything off for you, Marco,
Say
that
it again.
title?
Say it again.
Ancient structure
Yeah.
emerges from Mount Ararat's glacier, discovered by Eastman archaeology.
Now, if you're about to try and fucking tell me that they've gone and found the Ark, is that what you're about to try and pull over our old Marco?
Yet, Marco, I
Hmm.
clicked on that article, and as I suspected, the subheading was, "Has Noah's Ark been found?"
Now, I can't remember exactly what the law is, but if a headline asks a question, the answer is always no.
Right, yeah, pretty much. But let's entertain it a little bit.
Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. We're an open-minded podcast here, Jack of all
And
trades.
this is just a little anecdote to take us to where we're
Of
going. So
course.
I'm not really going to spend much time on whether or not the arc is real. But here, if you are or have at any point in your life been evangelical, you're probably like, haven't we already been through this? And the answer is yes. Every few years, we go through the same song and dance with some new technology, scanning Mount Ararat and finding something suspiciously arc-shaped, causing everyone you know to suddenly be like, aha, proof of the flood. The Bible is correct. In this case, thanks to climate change, the receding of the glaciers in that particular area has led to an increased ability to take satellite images of the mountain and revealed what's described as a 488-foot long by 69 feet wide structure.
Can I take the temperature of modern evangelical thinking right now,
Okay.
vis-a-vis the existence and this discovered kind of status of the Ark, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
is evangelical kind of received opinion that the Ark has already been discovered,
No,
right?
no, absolutely not. That's why this is a thing,
Because
right?
um the the best taste of this particular flavor of mania that I've had yet, and I haven't spoken about this for a
Mm,
while, but some years
okay.
back, I know, and I know I've spoken about it on the cast, but not recently, was going to a Christian petting zoo,
Oh,
right?
that's right. Yes,
And
yes,
so you
totally.
remember this.
Mm-hmm.
It's just outside Bristol called Noah's Ark Farm Park, and all of
I
the
just love
exhibits,
that name so much.
Noah's Ark Farm Park, yeah. But to read the literature there, they speak of the arc as fact. They speak
Right,
of
yeah.
of
Mm-hmm.
you know the time period as tangible, as something that we have records of. You
Mm-hmm.
know just detailed talk on how it was built, how it looked,
I'm
how
sure
that
there's
whole
probably stuff in there about like how, and we know this is true because other cultures also have flood narratives. Like,
yeah yeah.
everybody has some version of this story.
The most and I will take this with me to my fucking grave, but the most egregious bit of bullshittery that I will never fucking ever forget from that day was when they brought out some donkeys for us to pet the donkeys, stroke the donkeys, pet the donkeys, feed the
I love
donkeys.
donkeys so much.
Oh, they're the best.
They're so cute.
But did you know, CoRri?
Mm.
Did something I'm going to tell you about donkeys going to blow your mind?
Go
Um,
ahead.
if you just look from the top down, take a bird's eye view of the back of a donkey, right?
Oh no.
The donkey's back. What do you see on the top
It's a
there?
cross, isn't it?
It's a cross, mate. It's a cross, which all donkeys now have because one time Jesus rode one.
It's so funny because it's like that's such a line of bullshittery,
Oh,
right? That you would think a place that's trying to like
so good.
like a place that's trying to make all of this stuff sound scientific, you would think
Yeah.
they would avoid something
Oh,
like that. That's
they
clearly a
would
like how the leopard got its spots kind of thing,
completely.
right?
But some of these exhibits, used phrases like carbon dating. and
Mm-hmm.
like uh, kind of like you would expect something out of a Darwin textbook, an evolutionary kind
Sure.
of tree, you know? Uh, so they purported to take a scientific look at it. So the fact that there's actual science now from Mount Ararat is
Mm-hmm.
thrilling to me. Thrilling.
Yeah, and I
Tell
mean
me
that kind
more.
of this points to exactly what I was sorry,
Mm,
so allergied. This points kind of to exactly what I'm about to get into. But one of the things for like those of us who were Christians, but also like thinking people, like
yes,
you're
yes,
always trying to kind of
yes.
figure out like, how does this work, right? Because your brain is telling you like this stuff doesn't make sense, but like
It
you
is
believe, so
so beautiful that you've opened us up with this train of thought because it dovetails beautifully with the angle that I want us to take a bit later on. So
amazing. Oh, look at us
couldn't have written
go.
this
We
better.
are
So
back,
good.
back in action, back on our game,
Yeah,
and I
man.
love that. But you're always trying to sort of justify things with like any form of science that you can. Like I remember
Yeah.
having like the pastor at my church, the last church that I was going to before I stopped going, um, he did like a whole series that was basically explaining how like the 7-day creation worked literally and using sort of scientific things, but it also meant kind of like rejecting things like Pangea, but explaining that like,
Yes.
obviously like there was land in between,
Yeah.
like where did that come from and stuff like that, and like trying to
Yeah.
sort of science and rationale things out like that because you know that people are gonna like learn science and question what's going on here.
Right. The most compelling way I've heard it described, and I can't even remember where I've read this put this way, was that God is always humanity's first guess.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So what the fuck is that big glowing disc in the sky? Must be God.
Right.
Oh, what's that bolt of fucking electric blue power coming from? Must be God.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
It makes
until we
perfect
can
sense because
bank
it's,
that down,
yeah, we, if you think about Christian theology too, the idea of imago Dei, do you know what that means?
I do not.
It's what it sounds like, the image of God, right?
Okay,
And
yeah,
that
yeah,
man is made in the image of God. And so if you think about it that way, then we are obviously a reflection of God, an imperfect, flawed version of that. But as such, you can sort of ascribe the same kinds of like motivations and
yeah,
thoughts and feelings and things like that to God.
yeah.
And that makes perfect sense with like if God is man's first guess, right? It's because we can only imagine someone like us. It's the thing that I come back to all
Oh
the time with
man.
aliens, right? Like
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
reason
yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
imagine aliens are going to come here and like colonize us or whatever, things like that, is because we can only imagine them
Yes.
as us.
Yeah.
So when we think about, when we're trying to posit like, oh, how did this shit happen? The only thing that we can think of is like,
Yes.
what would we do?
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah, completely. And it's super fascinating, like endlessly fascinating and a little bit terrifying to me when you think of take I don't know, a fucking dolphin, right?
Hmm.
A dolphin has no concept of like TV,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Yet physically they exist in exactly the same space. There's a
Right. Yeah.
TV not far away from a dolphin,
Sure.
but yet
Some
the
dolphins have probably seen a
dolphin
TV.
exactly this, but they cannot conceive of what it is or what it might be used for.
Right.
And yet isn't it fascinating to think that there might be a similar fucking affair going on with us?
Right, like they have some concept that they use. Like think about just like even something like your pet,
Yeah,
what how your dog conceives of the world, right? You can see
yeah,
them thinking and processing and all that kind of stuff. But certainly they
yeah.
have no clue, yeah, what a television is. But Walter is constantly trying to attack animals that he sees, and like he'll run around behind the TV to try to
Sure.
figure out
Yeah,
like
yeah,
if
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah, yeah,
if it
yeah.
walks
Yeah.
off screen,
Yep.
he'll run behind to try to figure out where it went and stuff like that. Like they have no clue, but certainly their little dog minds process it somehow
Yeah.
within
And
the
yet
framework of what dogs understand.
Walter and that TV physically are inches away from one another. They
Right.
share the same
Yeah.
physical space
Hmm.
dimensions, and yet they are both utterly unaware of one another's existence.
Yep.
I love that, and I oh yeah, it proper tantalizes me to think that if them, why not us?
Right. Yeah. And so it's an interesting it's an interesting thing because as such, we're always, for someone who is a believer and really wants to believe in this stuff, you're always kind of looking, if you're an intellectual type, some people prefer to just go with the like God's ways are beyond our understanding, and that's
Sure.
they need nothing further than this.
Mm.
Like I'm not meant to understand, and
But
so I'm not
surely
going to
that's another
try.
yet another contradiction. I mean, in the various kind of fleeting conversations I've had with street preachers, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
I'll give them 5 minutes of my day whenever I'm passing. If they reach out
Sure.
to me, I
Yeah.
enjoy it. You know this. Um, and when I sort of talk about, the sheer kind of illogic of, you know, send my son, become my son, so you can then kill me, and then that absolves you of just none of it makes any fucking
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
And in explaining that, the response is generally something along the lines of, well, how can you as a human
Right.
gain? But hang on, but you've just said I'm in his image, so why wouldn't there be
Right.
commonalities? Hang on. It
Yeah.
to any rational non-believer, it is patently horseshit.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those, what do they call that? Like a thought ending, a thought terminating.
Yes, fallacy. It's a kind
Yeah,
of
something like that,
yeah,
where it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
we've reached the point at which we can no further, we can discuss no further. So
yes,
you say, God's ways are beyond our understanding, and it's like, oh,
yep.
well, what do you say to
Oh,
that? There's
great.
nothing
Okay.
further. What do
Yes,
you argue beyond that? Like,
exactly.
oh, okay, okay,
Have a good
cool.
day. Bye. And then
Yeah.
I hand back the leaflet and whistle on my way.
Right. But for a lot of people, like they are fully willing to just kind of accept that. I can't understand that, and
Mm,
therefore there's no reason for me to try. It would be hubris for me to try
exactly.
to do
And I
this,
guess
which is
that's
always a funny thing to me too, that people who are into extraterrestrials use the exact same terminology, that like, oh, it would be,
mm,
how could I be so prideful as to think I'm the only one
mm.
in the universe and there's no other, intelligent life besides me. And it's the same thing that Christians use, though. How could I be so prideful as to imagine I could know
Oh
what
yeah.
God is doing? It's like, it's really just kind of a like, a way of uh, false humility about
Yeah,
thinking you're
it's
right.
what's the word? Anthropomorphizing your
Hmm.
own little ideas. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's got nothing to do with pride, nothing at all to
No,
do with pride. It's
not
just
at all.
thinking about how huge things are and,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah, this
shooting
is
your
how
shot.
we.
No one knows. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Um, so yeah, there's always sort of this push to try to understand things that way. So, like I said, 488 feet long by 69 feet wide. And explorer Gary Eastman declared, quote, "This structure, whether a ship or an ancient building, has been encased in ice for centuries and is now visible to us." He went on to say, "Whether or not this is Noah's Ark, the structure holds immense cultural and historical significance. Further exploration could unlock important insights about the ancient civilizations that lived here."
Imagine being Gary and fucking finding that.
And
Eh?
like I
Oof.
said, this has been a thing that like for decades has been like, you can see various aerial things and stuff like that of some sort of, I mean, it looks like a giant boat, but it also looks like any natural formation. And I watch
Yeah.
a lot of I've talked about this many times on here, obsessed with Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates. And one of the things that you see a lot on that show is there are so many natural formations that people are like, this for certain, this is Atlantis. This is
Yes, yes.
absolutely, without doubt, man made. This is a sunken city. And then they go up and it's like, that is, I'm so sorry, but that is 100% natural.
Yep.
Like once you actually start looking at it, it's like nature can do a lot of the things that we can.
Completely, completely. A while back, the James Webb Telescope found an arrangement of like stars and gas and planets and whatever that forms a perfect fucking question mark in the middle of space,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's just simply
It just,
maths. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's just sometimes that shit happens. Just like
Yes.
you see Jesus on a piece of toast.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's just the way things
Yes.
come together. But I guarantee you, when that happened, that picture was taken, that there were Christians all over the internet who were saying that's proof of God.
Yep.
How would that question mark
Oh, of
get up
course.
there?
Yes.
God did that. Why? I
Yeah.
don't know. But for some reason, God put a question mark in the galaxy.
But like right behind that question mark, just out of the range of our telescope, there's like another 50. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're fucking literally everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. There's actually some like very easy scientific reason that like
Yeah.
question marks exist in the galaxy,
Mm.
like a nautilus or something like that. But anyways, while researchers do seem to think there is evidence people did live in that area at the time that the Noah's Ark story in the Bible is said to have taken place, there's really no evidence that the story is true, nor that there is a giant boat just chilling there waiting for big oil to destroy the planet enough to reveal it. There could be various artifacts and things like that from some civilization, but that is probably not Noah's. Very
Rats.
unlikely to be Noah's Ark. But I mean, this is also, I mean, just as an aside, the thing about stuff like that is it's like really like you've got a giant ass boat up there that supposedly every animal on Earth was on, and there's just like not a single artifact that has been washed down by erosion or something
Yep.
like that that shows that this happened. There are artifacts of civilization that people have found up there. That's why researchers know people did live there, but not like, you know, you'd think there'd be like some elephant bones or something like that.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, you know this, I know this,
Yeah,
and the evidence of our own eyes and ears, the fucking fact that we know it doesn't, it's horse shit. It doesn't even fucking vaguely hold
right.
together slightly with a rational eye.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I bring this up not because I have any particular interest in Noah's Ark, but because when I
Mm,
saw this come across my news feed, I had exactly that reaction. Just like, come on, really? Like, the
yeah,
person who posted it isn't the most outright evangelical. Like, I do have friends who, like, everything they post is very churchy and thank you, Jesus-y and stuff like that. But he's not one of those. He's not constantly posting weird Jesus stuff. But I think the fact that this was dressed up as real archaeological
science.
research
Yeah,
had
yeah.
him like, hey, look, just asking questions here. In fact, when other people suggested other things it could be in his comments, he agreed with them, just sort of noting that, it's interesting. Um,
Let me ask you
and
something,
yeah,
just a quick sec. What would it take, proof wise, to convince you? What would it take
that it's Noah's Ark.
that that you were right before that there's that God exists, it's all cool, it's the way that you were told? What would it
Mm.
take now in 2024
Ooh,
to prove that to you, to get you back on side?
that is a very good question. I mean, yeah, I think, yeah, what would count as evidence? I mean, I think the thing is, I don't think short of like seeing God at this point, you could convince me at least that the biblical God exists.
Okay.
Um, there could be other ways to convince me that there is some sort of deity, I suppose, based on maybe some other scriptures or like, I don't know. There may be some other thing, but the biblical God, I think that
Mm,
I know the Bible well enough and I know science and history well enough and things like that, that short of the
nothing
actual
less than,
reappearance of
yeah.
Jesus, I don't think you could convince me at this point.
But how do you even, what are the gateways that has to go through for that to be,
Right, to
to
believe that
sign
you have
off on that?
seen
Yeah.
God. Right. Like, I
It'd be a
mean, we're
miracle, wouldn't it? You'd
talking
have to
big
have a
man in
miracle.
the
You just,
sky
yeah,
kind of.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
even miracles, like that's the thing is like there's usually some way that like and I was thinking about this too, and I can't remember if it was because I was reading about the thing I'm about to talk to, which I have not even gotten to yet, but
Sorry, sorry, sorry.
no, it's fine. This is talking about evangelicalism is always a thing that gets us going.
Mm,
But I was thinking about oh no, I was listening to the last podcast on the left and they're uh doing like a one on like a murder cult basically, that was like a Christian cult that was claiming to be getting rid of Satanists who were doing whatever. Um But I was thinking about like the idea of miracles and how in this they were talking about how this woman who was like the cult leader, she
Yeah.
would do things like she would like spray like amounts like crazy amounts of blood from her mouth in the middle of these
Yeah.
like kind of possession sort of things that she would go
Yeah.
through.
Nice. Nice. Nice.
And for her
Bit
followers,
of
they were like,
chicanery, bit of vaudeville.
oh, full on.
Yeah.
And her
Yeah.
followers were like, if this isn't true, how is she able to produce all of that blood from her mouth? Then it's like, yeah, that does seem kind of crazy or whatever. And then like I think it was Henry who was talking about it. Is like, but the thing is, you have to realize it's that they didn't want to see the chicanery.
Yes.
They didn't want to
Yes.
see the carny shit that was happening. And so all she was doing was like literally keeping like a balloon full of blood in her mouth.
Yeah.
And part of the ritual, she stopped talking because, you know, the like demon or whatever took over control and she couldn't use her voice anymore.
Yeah.
So, like, very clearly, she was, you know, she was doing this, but her followers didn't want to see that. Even though if they really looked, they would know, they probably
Mm.
know in their hearts she was faking it, but they didn't want to see it, so they didn't. And I think about that like with like ghost experiences that I had in my past. I'm using scare
Of
quotes for
course.
anyone who is listening at home, that I'm sure there were things that could easily be attributed to it. Like I remember like one of the things that happened was my friends and I, there were like 9 of us and we were walking through a cemetery and there was like a figure walking towards us, but as it came towards us, all of a sudden like the bottom half of it just sort of like disappeared
Sure.
and all of us saw it. Every single one of us were standing there and we were like we all froze. This like group of 9 people all standing there. We were like, did
Oh,
that
wow.
person just like half of them disappear? And it was terrifying. And I remember us all just being like, okay. And then they kind of like turned and walked, and we never saw them again in the cemetery. Um, I'm sure that like somehow if we'd investigated, maybe there was something obscuring the bottom
Yeah.
half of them, but
Yeah.
we were enjoying being scared too. So
Of
whatever
course.
explanation there was, we did not want to see
Yeah.
it. You know, like whatever happened, whatever reason the bottom half of that person disappeared and then we never saw them again, we didn't
Yeah.
want to see
I mean,
whatever that
my
was.
go-to response whenever someone shares a kind of a spooky occurrence or an unexplained happening is always, I don't know, I may not know what it was, but I know what it wasn't, you know?
Sure.
And
Which,
there's
and I
always a
think I tend to be a
million.
little less like, because, you know, I tend to have like more of an agnostic
Yeah.
attitude towards things because I've been certain of things before and been wrong. And I tend to kind of look at it like if there's like actual proof of something out there, okay, I'm going to be open to that existing. However, I think it probably doesn't. And most of our experiences are things like that where it's like you may have seen something bananas, but you did not want to see what else it could have been, or you know you jumped to
True.
that
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
the only thing
So
it could have
so
been.
there's still a crumb then of
It's not belief, it's
okay, openness to be
yeah, it's
challenged.
yeah, it's simply the idea that i don't I don't like the idea of going, you could put something directly in front of my face,
Yes.
and because I don't want to believe in it, I wouldn't, because I think that's the same thing as believing.
Okay.
If an apparition walked up to me in the cemetery and walked through me, I wouldn't be like, that can't be. You know what I mean? But I don't believe that can happen because I don't believe there is an afterlife. That's the way I look at it. Simply
Okay.
that if there were evidence of something, I wouldn't shut it off simply because um my intellectual brain says no. That's out of the pride of being too set in my ways to believe that anything could happen.
Do you know, I think the moment at which I would have no other choice would be that moment of review. If it isn't something that's just being shown to me, if other
Mm.
fucking people have seen this and it's been through fucking, you know, the scientific method, it's been checked, it's been reproduced, you
Yeah.
know?
Right. And I think that's largely my thing. But like, say if you were like standing there and like a, an apparition came and walked through you, and I know obviously I don't believe this can happen. If that happened to you,
Yeah.
is that what do you just go like, I think I had a stroke? Is that
I would
the...
I would firstly be looking for, the technology. I
Right,
would be
yeah.
looking for the
Yeah.
projection. I'd
Who
be
has
looking for
done
the
this?
source.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Fucking hell. I'd
Like,
probably
I
blame
know
it.
it's hard to imagine because you're pretty sure it doesn't exist, but like, I'm just saying, like, as a holy shit,
Mm,
I am out somewhere walking in the
Yeah,
wilderness and this crazy thing happens to me. Do you
I
deny it
think,
because you don't believe in it, or do you
yeah, I
accept there
do.
might be
I
something
would
going on?
blame, I would blame delirium or mental
Hmm.
illness before that final,
Okay,
that final kind of barrier. I could not get past that.
sure. Yeah. Which, and also I think probably I would definitely go to the doctor
Yes.
first. You make sure that I'm not about to have an aneurysm or something like that. But I think that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of difference. I wouldn't necessarily be like, that can't happen. Like, I just need a lot of proof. But yeah, so all that is just to say, this is a thing that people do, is they kind of they want to believe and they want to see the evidence with things like this. And that is the thing about evangelicalism. Part of the deal is you have to believe the Bible, and you have to
Yes.
believe it literally. And I'm being specific that I'm talking about evangelicals because there are plenty of other kinds of Christians, especially progressive Christians, who absolutely do not think the Bible is literal. A lot of people consider the Bible to be, parables, books of stories, things that are supposed to teach you something, and that, the world wasn't
Yep.
literally created in 7 days or 6 days and rest, things like that. But
I guess
evangelicals,
that flavor of Christian makes it easier to explain away all of the abhorrent bits of the Bible.
right? Yes, exactly. Yeah, but evangelicals think the stuff in the Bible really literally happened. And thus even the most sane and savvy ones who aren't out there claiming they see demons everywhere and whatnot still believe that somewhere out there we can physically find evidence of stuff like Noah's Ark and that the flood actually happened. Similarly, the vast majority of evangelicals believe that hell is a physical location where
Yeah, yeah,
people who
yeah.
don't accept Christ will
Yep.
physically be sent.
Yep.
Now, there are different interpretations of what it will be like. It could be a lake of fire just burning for all eternity. It could be essentially a giant trash heap. That's often when you hear people talk about Gehenna, which is the thing that comes up in the Bible mostly. It's talked about, like, when we talk about hell in the Bible, it's usually Gehenna. And that is essentially, yeah, it's like a trash heap, more or less.
Wow.
It could be
I love the
different.
episodes where I learn shit. I love the episodes where I learn
I'm
shit.
here to teach you, Mark. It could be different for every person, like Dante's Inferno type shit.
That's
Um,
my personal hope. If hell is real,
Everyone
like Bill
gets
and
their
Ted's
own
Bogus
hell.
Journey, I hope that it's
Right.
bespoke. I hope that everyone gets
Yes.
their own little room.
Right. Everyone is tortured in their own way.
Yep.
Maybe each of us are assigned a demon to torture us individually. Could be physical, could be emotional, could be
As long as I
whatever.
don't have to mix and small talk stuff.
That's your hell,
That's the
buddy.
no,
Listen,
just as long as it's just me,
be
I'm
careful
fine.
what you wish for.
Hmm.
And it could simply be Earth, but without any godly interference, where we will all feel the eternal torment of his absence, a fate worse than any torture. Whatever the case may be, it exists and physically is somewhere. Perhaps even at the center of the very earth upon which we tread.
Yes.
And since the late 80s, some major Christian organizations, as well as regular old conspiracy theorists, have put forth that Russian geologists have actually found it in a
Oh, come
place
on.
dubbed by believers the Well to Hell.
Come on.
Now, Mark, the
Yes.
details vary depending on which source you're reading from, but here are the
Sorry,
basic
I'm booking a
facts.
flight.
So, 1989, Siberia. Geologists dig a hole 9 miles deep before suddenly and unexpectedly breaking through into some sort of hollow and cavernous area.
Mm.
That shouldn't be, right? The Earth isn't hollow.
No, no, no.
So they start doing some investigation. They discover that the temperature of this cavern they've busted into is a staggering 2,000 degrees. So they lower a microphone into the hole.
Good.
Check out what's going
Yes,
on.
yes, yes.
And this is when things get truly terrifying because the sounds that come back, well, I'm actually going to let you hear them for yourself, Mark. So I have just sent you those very sounds, the actual recording from Siberia to your signal.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it sounds like souls, mate. It
It
sounds like
sounds
fucking
like souls.
the souls of the wretched. Oh, fucking hell.
I'll try to put this in there, but you want to describe what you souls of the wretched is a good way to put it. You want to describe what you heard.
What I just heard, the sound that came back from the well of hell, it is just this cacophony of overlapping, gibbering, almost human sounding,
Yeah.
just vocalizations, tormented, delirious, ravenous almost, just noise overlapping itself, overlapping itself. It sounds like a million different fucking signals. And it's
Beautiful.
horrible. It is hellacious. It is hellish.
It is hellacious. That's right, Mark. The horrified archaeologists recorded the clear sounds of human voices screaming and wailing in torment. The only explanation? They had inadvertently drilled into hell itself. This
That
was
would
only
convince me.
validated when scientists, hopefully this would too, when scientists saw an apparition they took to be Satan himself rise from the pit. Trinity Broadcasting Network, who quickly snapped up the story, quoted a man named Mr. Numadal, whose
When was
words
this?
were
When are we
cited.
when are we here?
The late 80s, so 1989,
Okay.
I believe this happens. His words were cited, they said, in a Finnish newspaper called Amenustastia. Amenustastia.
Nice, nice.
I clearly do not speak Finnish. Quote, what really unnerved the Soviets, apart from the voice recordings, was the appearance that same night of a fountainhead of luminous gas shooting up from the drill site. And out of the midst of this incandescent cloud pillar, a brilliant being with bat wings revealed itself with the words, in Russian, I have conquered, emblazoned against the dark Siberian sky.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I love Satan appearing like a pyrotechnics show at Disneyland.
Really,
it's just
yeah.
gonna be like Tinkerbell ziplining by any minute here.
Like that fucking Spider-Man dummy that they just launched.
Right, yeah.
Into the sky.
Now I'm sure Trinity Broadcasting Network, or TBN, is unfamiliar to you, yes?
Yes, completely.
Yeah. Here in the US, it's a huge evangelical network. Its headquarters used to be in Costa Mesa, where I went to college. And the grounds and buildings were absolutely insane. Just gold absolutely everywhere. Big, ostentatious, proud display of all the money that they were grifting from gullible elderly folks and mentally ill people thinking they were receiving messages through the TV. Horrible place. I think they I don't know if they went bankrupt or what, but they did sell the building 5 or 6 years ago. So it's just like this weird empty white castle on the side of the freeway, now covered in gold and all of this kind of stuff. But the network still exists, still on every day. And it's an abominable conscienceless channel, but it is super popular. Even I used to watch their late night Christian hard rock and metal shows as a teenager. This was, I loved to stay up and watch that.
Your college, was it like an evangelical college? Is that a thing? Does it exist?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay.
It was in the Assemblies of God denomination. Yes.
Oof.
That's the real Pentecostal type with all the raising of hands and speaking in tongues and all that kind of stuff.
All of which would happen regularly there, and you would see.
We were kind of like the bastard stepchild of the AG, so people certainly did that kind of thing, but it wasn't like, so I had to go to chapel 3 times a week. And I never saw people like doing any of that stuff in chapel or anything like that. But certainly a
Okay.
lot of people at their churches, like I think I've said this before, but like Emily and I went to her RD's church one night and we walked in and people had like ribbon dancers and were like spinning and like
Wow.
doing all kinds of bananas things and like screaming and crying and, you know, all this very
Uh-huh.
demonstrative stuff. And we were like, um, I don't
Uh,
think we're this kind of assemblies of
wow.
God. But yeah, so it certainly was a thing. We just, our school was a little milder with that stuff than some
I
of the
mean,
other ones would have been.
you've answered my next question, but you've never been seized
No, no, I have
by
not. Yeah,
the
which
divine
is,
hand.
yeah, under like Assemblies of God, like doctrine, the only way you are truly saved essentially is to have, I can't remember what the phrase is now, it's been so long, but essentially you have to speak in tongues.
Sure.
And if you've never spoken in tongues, you haven't really, communed with the Holy
I'd
Spirit.
love if the phrase does occur to you, I'd love to know what it is.
Yeah. But one of the as such, this obviously would cause a lot of people to kind of feel like nervous about their
Yeah,
salvation. And so
of course.
you would kind of
Awkward.
like, a lot of people would like make up
Oh,
their things. So
shoving
there's a lot of jokes about like the things that you say. So the guy who does the, it was the 90s
Of
things, like
course.
his
Kevin Peter Thornton, I think his name is.
Kevin James Thornton, I think.
There you go. Yes.
Something like that. But yeah, he one of his like sayings is Shamala Hamala, and
Right.
that is a pretending to speak in tongues phrase, Shamala
Ah,
Hamala.
okay.
Another one is like bada hunda shoulda bada hyundai. Things like that. These are the kinds of bullshit phrases you can get up and say that sound like you're speaking in tongues, and then
Hmm.
someone will come and interpret what you're saying. So there will always be someone standing next to you, saying whatever it is that God is
Of
speaking
course.
through you.
Of course.
It's quite a thing. So anyway, TBN is, uh, targeted at people who are in those kinds of faiths, and is hugely influential, especially at that point. We're talking about like height of televangelism and stuff like that in the 80s and 90s and all of that stuff.
Just because it's super interesting to me in this moment. Do
Mm.
you remember, right? The
The
first
20th day of September.
Do you remember your first doubt and what caused it?
Uh,
Or is that not how it works?
yeah, it's not really how it works because it's kind of, doubt is like a big part
I
of
see.
the
I
whole
see.
thing. And like I said, there are some people who like, they just aren't intellectually curious enough to doubt.
Yep.
But like, you have so many examples in the Bible, like Thomas, for example.
Of
Um,
course.
Doubting Thomas is a phrase. Have
Of
you never heard
course.
that before?
Yeah, no, of course,
You've
yes.
heard Doubting Thomas before. And do
Mm.
you know where the phrase comes from?
I always assumed, yeah, something along those lines.
In the Bible, of course,
Yes.
Thomas. There's, I think the best way to phrase it's from a song that I really loved in my Christian days. Where by Nicole Nordeman, it says Thomas needed proof that you had really risen undefeated when he placed his fingers where the nails once pierced your skin. And so basically, he didn't believe that God had, that Jesus had died and risen again until he physically stuck his hands in the hole, fingers
I
in the
see.
holes in his skin. And that's like,
That was what it took for him.
that's what it took for him to believe. Um, and so, doubt is baked into the whole thing, but you're supposed to kind of pray it out. You're supposed to
Got you.
use the Bible to
But no,
push you through
you've
those
answered the
things.
question. It's baked in. It's written in the
It's
text, isn't
baked
it?
in.
This
Yeah,
is,
exactly. They
yeah,
know,
yeah,
the
yeah,
book
yeah,
writers
yep.
knew that you were going to question, that you were going to need to stick your fingers in the holes.
Because from where I'm stood, he's just regular Thomas, and everybody else
Yeah,
is
and everybody else is like very
batshit Mike.
credulous, Thomas.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure. Um, But yeah, so TBN, at this point, everything's they're thriving, televangelism's all over the place, and they pick up this story. Um, and naturally, as such, other Christian publications started picking it up. And as the internet and the email forward became commonplace, the story got passed on from person to person, address book to address book. Soon the origins were all but lost, but each publication or email referenced some other publication or newsletter that supposedly then gave the story credibility. I'm not sure exactly when the recordings of the screams were added to the mix, since obviously there wouldn't have been like
I
YouTube when this
see.
started spreading.
I see.
But the ubiquity of video on the internet clearly just added another level of credibility to the story. It can't be fake. We can hear it. And stuff like that always reminds me of the time that my friend's husband, who is very into conspiracy, insisted to me that some YouTube video was actually JFK talking about the existence of secret societies or some shit.
Wow.
And that this was why they murdered him, was because of this speech that he had given. And it was giving away the whole game that the government is run by all these secret societies, right? And so he sent me the YouTube link, and it was clearly someone just doing like a Mayor Quimby ass impression of JFK, just like this budget version of JFK, reading an edited version of a speech that you could actually easily find the real full text of in the Library of Congress archives with a simple Google
Yeah.
search.
Yeah,
But
it's the same kind of. It's attributing just horse shit to Anthony Hopkins, or Morgan
or
Freeman,
Morgan Freeman, yeah,
just
Abraham Lincoln.
wise old man.
Right. And the thing about stuff like that, JFK speech or the Noah's Ark story or the well to hell, is that people hearing them really, really want to believe. So they're not going to do that very basic work to debunk it. And they're probably going to bristle at someone else giving them evidence that it's not true.
It's exactly the same phenomenon as just, misattributed quotes on Facebook. Because,
Yeah.
I love scotching these. I absolutely love it.
Right.
And every time I post a Snopes link,
Yeah. It sounds like
the
something you would say.
exactly. The response is always, well, it's a great idea anyway, isn't it? It's a good sentiment anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like
harumph.
the goalposts move
Yeah.
so easily, because people want to agree with the thing. And it's, another rhetorical fallacy, right? Like an appeal to authority kind of thing. Oh, well, if JFK said it, then
Yes.
that makes more sense than like my quirky alcoholic uncle ranting about this in the basement, right? Like that's a lot more credibility right
Mm.
there if he's the one who said this thing. But yes, in this case, dear friend, I regret to inform you there was not, in fact, a portal to hell. And the origins of the story were the ultimate urban legend game of telephone. In 1990, Christianity Today put out an
I know
article.
that game.
Right. We're not going to. I
I know
considered,
that game.
adding what you would call it, and then
I
I
paused for a
decided
moment,
against
then I
it.
thought, yeah, I know that game.
Yeah, I know that game. In 1990, Christianity Today put out an article debunking the well to hell hoax. Again, this is 1990. First explaining some other common Christian hoaxes and urging readers to understand that they need to stop being so goddamn gullible and have a little incredulity about the shit they read on the internet or hear from their friends at church. Not in those words, obviously. The magazine really did the work here, though. The author, whose name is unfortunately not on the article, contacted a Texas evangelist who had been spreading the story alongside TBN and asked him for his sources. The funny thing about this article in Christianity Today, too, is that they're working so hard to speak to people in a way that will not make them defensive.
Mm.
And in doing so, like, they don't name TBN. They say
Hmm.
a network, right? And a Texas evangelist. I'm not sure which one that was, but it's clearly one of the televangelists on
Mm.
TBN. So they're clearly trying not to say,
Name and
hey, you
shame.
can't listen
Mm.
to this person because they're telling you lies. They know that their readers are going to reject that outright. So they're
Mm.
being very vague about the fact that a network and an evangelist were saying these things. But so they asked this Texas evangelist for his sources. and that evangelist faxed over a copy of the Finnish article as well as a letter from a Norwegian man that had been sent to TBN. So let's start with the article. The article had been presented as either from a Finnish newspaper or from a respected Finnish scientific journal. But in reality, it was neither of those things. It turned out to be a newsletter put out by Finnish Christian missionaries. So the author reached out to the missionaries and asked them where they got the story. And one of the staffers said that she'd read it in a newspaper and passed it along to the newsletter's editor. So they found the newspaper in which she had read it. And it turned out that it wasn't in the newspaper as a news story, but as a letter from a reader. Mark, they tracked down the reader who sent in that letter. And
Yes,
the reader said he had seen the story in a Christian magazine published in Helsinki. And of course, the author tracked down that Helsinki publication, where the editor said that he got the story from an elderly man who translated it from English and thought he got it from a Christian newsletter in California.
Good God. Good God.
Right? Jesus Christ. As you can imagine, they weren't able to trace it any further back from that, given the vagueness of that description. There's just no possible way. But that is so many layers of so-and-so said, so-and-so said. I mean, we are at like my sister's cousin's brother's best friend.
Yeah.
100%. So that's the Finnish article pretty roundly debunked right there. What about the letter from the Norwegian man that had been sent to TBN? Well, they found him too. A school teacher named Aga Rendelin. In the letter, he'd said that he'd seen the story all over the papers in Denmark, including and included with his letter a clipping with what he said was a translation. Christianity Today asked him if there was any way for him to know if it was true, to which he basically replied that, yeah, he knew. Quote, none of it is true. I fabricated the letter, and the translation is fiction, too. The article I sent is a feature about a Norwegian building inspector. According to Rendelin, he'd basically done it as a goof after he'd seen the story on TBN while visiting California and figured these dumb fucks were so gullible, if he sent them a letter, they would use it as proof. And use it, they did.
Incredible.
Had they had anyone try to substantiate it, they would have realized that the translation was total bunk and was not, in fact, what he said.
The entire story is horseshit.
Well, I mean, it was, he had seen this, so they were already talking about this, right? But he had seen that and then sent this in as like validation, like, oh, here's a newspaper clipping. And that was, not real. It was total bullshit. In 1998, the legend took on new life again when America's foremost conspiracy theorist Art Bell, host of Coast to Coast AM, played the audio clip. Have you heard of Art Bell or Coast to Coast AM?
Fuck no.
It is basically the heart of conspiracy in America. Before you had Alex Jones and stuff like that, you had Art Bell. And arguably there's always a political element to conspiracy theory, but was more just your straight conspiracy theory, aliens and crop circles and
just whatever comes.
Whatever. And it was just, he'd let people talk. They would call into the show and he just was like, yes, tell me all your things that you think you've seen.
You use the past tense. Is he not around?
He's dead. Yeah, he's been gone for I think like a decade or more now. But I think the show still exists. I'm not positive, but I'm fairly certain that there is like some iteration of that show that still exists, or they replay it. But it's on AM radio, not a thing that I listen to a heck of a lot. But with an audience of some 12 million Fox Mulder types hanging on his every word, the story circulated amongst those who might not have ever even seen the inside of an Assemblies of God church. In reality, there is, in fact, a super deep hole in Russia. It's called the Kola Super Deep Borehole, appropriately. The hole reaches 7.5 miles below the Earth's surface and took geologists some 20 years to complete. It's also only about 9 inches or 23 centimeters in diameter. So if the devil is climbing up out of it, he must be on one hell of a diet. The researchers did.
What, the hole is that big?
It's 9 inches. It's bigger
Oh,
than 20,
okay.
23 centimeters.
Okay, okay.
So, 3 inches short of a foot wide. The researchers did expect to reach about 9 miles in depth, like the story says, but unexpectedly high temperatures stopped them. Not 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, but about 356 degrees.
That's not even a hole, it's a tube.
It is a tube. That's exactly what
Mm.
it is. And that's about 180 degrees Celsius. Their drill bits and pipes couldn't withstand those temperatures. And as such, I think it's safe to say a microphone sent down to record the wails of the damned probably wouldn't be able to withstand it either.
Mm.
They also never reached anything like a hollow cavern down there, just more earth. And as for that recording,
Yep.
it turned out to be just a continuous loop of the same screams over and over.
Fucking hell.
Some say that they come from the 1972 Italian film Baron Blood, but they're generic
I
enough that
love
they could
that.
really
I
be from
love
just
that.
about anything.
I didn't. No, I didn't. The Wilhelm scream would have been a giveaway, something like that. But no, I
Right,
didn't. I
yeah,
didn't
exactly. There's like no way you can tell
pick out
what
any.
this is.
Mm.
Like you said, it's just layers and layers of screaming and wailing
Hellish,
and right, yeah.
hellish.
It meets the assignment
Mm.
criteria. But yeah, Mark, for the time being, we still don't have a lock on the physical location of hell, but because evangelicals want to believe so darn bad, for a decade or two, they were convinced it was in Siberia.
And I bet they still kind of. Well, okay, that hell wasn't real, but they're
Well,
just
and I'm sure
waiting,
this
just
probably
waiting
still
for the
gets,
fucking next.
yeah, I would be willing to bet that this probably still gets passed around for sure. Like if you told this to my father-in-law, I guarantee you he would believe it
Mm.
without fail. Like, he's
Awesome.
often telling us things that like we're like that is like so clearly not true. But he just has like no savviness about like the idea that
Mm.
people would lie about stuff like that.
Yeah. I guess one of the last generations where information literacy was totally optional, man. You just
Right,
could
exactly.
decide that you didn't need it,
Yeah. I mean, I guess ignorance is bliss.
I guess.
Okay. Whew. That was good
Uh,
long discussion there.
it certainly was. Thank you. I enjoyed the rabbit holes. Any more kind of breadcrumbs that I can pick out about your evangelicism, I
Yeah.
will take that opportunity because it's still a source of a deep fascination for me. I love it. Mm.
I know at this point it seems so weird. I was talking about this with Kristen and Bree just the other day that Brienne was saying something about her parents still have like some hang-ups about like Halloween
Lingering.
and things like
Mm.
that. And she said that she had referred to like her friends as her coven or something, and her mom was like, don't call it that. And I was like, I said, I was like, I forget sometimes
Yeah.
that people are still
Yeah.
super Christian.
Dug
Because
in,
it's
yeah.
just, yeah, it's not like at this point I'm like, how, like, but there are still plenty of people who are super evangelical, and you begin to forget that I'm so detached
Mm.
from that like period in my life that it's always interesting to kind of look back because it does feel like a separate
It must do.
timeline.
It's been a while by now, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, I want to say, I mean, longer than that now because I've been out of grad school for nearly a decade at this point, and
Mm.
the last time that I went to church at all was during grad school, sometime about 10 years ago. Uh, I went once and have not been back. And yeah, and then like I didn't immediately like fully stop believing, kind of held on to little bits and pieces of that. But yeah, probably 7 or 8 years since I was like, I don't believe any of this actually.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's hence that question about kind of, you know, I think it's that bit on the cusp. It's that fulcrum of fuck this shit. between kind of I'm in or out. It's what tips you over the edge. How does the balance
Right.
shift?
Yeah.
That's the bit that really fascinates me. Anyway.
Anyway.
Good
Anyway.
good fucking afternoon, good morning, good night, wherever you are. Listen, thanks for joining us. I know why you've
Yay.
joined us. I know why
Mhm.
you've joined us. I know why you listen to us every week. I know why you're such a devotee of Jackal Graves because
Mm.
you know, don't you?
Oh,
Because
what
you
the
feel
hell?
it. You know something isn't right. There's something not quite fucking right with the world. And you feel that
Mm.
too. And you know
Yeah,
we feel that too, which is why
it's
you come
true.
back because you know it's safe here
That's right.
to ask the questions, to wonder
Mm.
where the fuck has this all gone wrong? And maybe to have a little bit of a chuckle about it all with your good friends, Mark and Corrigan.
Here, here. Couldn't have said it any better myself, Mark Lewis.
Yes.
I instantly started channeling my church self there, giving you a
Good.
little say that, all that stuff, which is I
Affirmations.
it's one of my favorite like hangovers from those times, and I think now because I live amongst Black people again, and Black people are very much like this.
Mm,
Um, it's always very funny when like I'm at like a thing and someone is talking about like like social justice and stuff like that, and I am right there
yeah.
with all the Black church ladies and
Yeah.
whatnot, like say that,
Giving
pastor.
it.
Like,
Yep. Giving it voice.
always gotta, you gotta talk back. You can't just passively
Yes.
listen. You gotta engage.
Uh, and if you're anywhere other than at the movies, I completely agree.
Right, obviously.
Mhm.
But far be it from me to tell other Black folks that they can't yell at the horror movie. I mean, culture is culture.
Fuck no.
So yes, dear friends, we're so happy to be back in your ear holes again. It is our favorite place to
Yes.
be. Um,
Delighted.
and listen, we had all of you, well, a bunch of you with us yesterday for maybe a little bit of an ill-conceived watch along.
Well, there was book club first, wasn't there? You had book club first. You
I
had a
think I talked about
successful
that
book
last
club,
week.
did you?
Yes, a
Okay,
great
fine.
book club. We had a very good
So
time.
a super successful book club, a less successful watch along.
Less successful. It was our first watch along with walkouts. That
Yeah,
has
yeah, yeah.
never happened before.
Not everyone at the beginning of the watch along was there for the end of the watch along.
Yes,
Let this
specifically
be a
because of
lesson.
the movie, not because
Oh,
of
yeah, not because of,
like
us. Turns
yeah.
out, Meet the Feebles hasn't aged all that
No.
well
No, it was and
from a certain
listen,
angle.
yeah, from a very particular angle,
Yeah,
which I have to rant a little bit about. Obviously, this is part I can't like fully blame you. I have seen this movie before, but in high
yeah,
school. And as I said during the watch along, like the unfortunate thing about the 2000s is that they were fucking terrible. And everything was full of misogyny and racism and homophobia and all that kind of stuff, where like I think you just kind of got inured to it, like, even if you thought it was wrong, it was just kind of
yes.
like, but
Which
it's
is
in
a conversation
everything.
we've had before. Yes, of course.
Right.
It's
It's just kind
you
of
you
like,
get like a callus to it, don't you almost?
yeah, like a callus around these kinds of things that does not exist anymore. And honestly, this movie is unforgivable and makes me hate Peter Jackson, who notoriously, here's the thing,
Wow.
like, obviously people have addressed the fact that he doesn't put people of color in his movies. And
Uh,
that like in Lord of the Rings, it was only the evil orcs, the monstrous characters who were played by people of color, and everyone else is white. And you could excuse that as a blind spot until you watch this and go, oh, fuck, he's a racist. Because there's a difference between like offending people's sensibilities, which is what most of this movie does, when you have like
yes.
puppets fucking and things like that, like it makes you like clutch your pearls, right? Like you're offending people's like moral sensibilities, which are not an immutable characteristic of a person, which is
Yeah.
very different than punching down at the most marginalized people in society. And this movie goes out of its way to do that, just grinding the whole movie to a halt. to indulge not only in horrible racist flashback, but then to come back to the storyline and introduce another incredibly racist caricature, neither of which are important to the film at all. He just literally, it was important to Peter Jackson to make fun of Asians in this movie. Uh, and I think on top of the fact that obviously, like, this stuff hasn't aged well for us generally, um, I am married to an Asian man who in his daily life faces an unhinged amount of racism, just incredible amounts of racism all the time, stuff that as a Black woman even I do not face, like constant racism. And I'm trying to imagine watching this with him and being like, no, but see, it's funny because Peter Jackson knows he's crossing a line. Like, this is okay. Like, there's a direct line from Peter Jackson doing this to, you know, mocking these Asian characters to the guys who get on comms during his cons that he's working and do Asian caricature voices. You know, like, these are not, it's not harmless. It's not like funny and edgy. It's not offending sensibilities. It's telling people that who Asians are as people is dumb and ugly and worth mocking. And that, I mean, you could feel that in the chat that it was like this went from being like, you know, oh, like this is so immature or whatever to like this is mean. This is a cruel movie. This is a hateful movie. And then after you get that racism, you move into a character that essentially has AIDS and it mocks AIDS victims as, you know, basically people who won't take responsibility for their own promiscuity and are shocked that they're being punished for it with AIDS. Another hugely cruel thing, punching down at the people who are suffering instead of, you know, moralistic people who have a hard time with sex and drugs and things like that, right? The target changes and becomes entirely unjustifiable at that point. And that's where, you know, I say fuck Peter Jackson and fuck this movie. I don't ever want to see another thing from him again. It's too much. That is, yeah, I could not justify this to my husband. Couldn't do it.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. Without treading on any of that, because for fuck's sake, how the fuck am I going to sit here and disagree with that?
Right.
Um, the kind of the Asian caricatures that you spoke about were in the context of an actually really kind of well observed deer hunter piss take, which was in and of itself kind of worthy of its place in the film, right? Whoa, hear me
Yeah.
out. Hear me out, right?
Okay, go on.
I don't know if their appearance in the movie was in and of itself an attempt to racially caricature Asian folk.
It is.
Or
Yeah, very
if
obviously is. It's
but
using the
but
exact same
but
ones that are used in
whilst
like
built
war
in.
propaganda and things like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. And it knows that. It's doing the deer hunter.
Right. But that's not an excuse.
Okay, no,
Right.
not at all, not at all. And even as I'm saying it in this in light of what you've just said, it's flimsy. My only kind of the only reason that Meet the Feebles still doesn't get in the fucking burn it pile is just how scattergun it is at just being horrific to pretty much everything it can in the space of its runtime.
That's such like the standard excuse
I
though, right?
know,
It's like when people
I
always go
know,
like, "Oh, but like, you know, I'm not racist. I hate everybody just the same," or whatever.
I
It's like, "No,
know,
but you're racist."
but it's that flimsy ass gossamer thin justification is the only thing standing between me actively calling Peter Jackson a racist and admitting that Meet the Feebles has aged fucking badly.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
not willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on that, especially because it follows the deer hunter bit, which you could, okay, flimsily justify, even though it's horrifically racist,
Yes.
with another Asian character that has nothing to do with that at all. There's
Did
just
it?
another racist
Uh,
Asian caricature
and
immediately
yes,
after
there
that
are
part.
other, yes, indeed. And there are actually plenty of other
It's, you know, and then taken together with the
arguably
fact that it's
worse racial characters, racial
yeah, it's not
mischaracterizations.
yeah, it's not a one-off thing.
Yeah.
And to pair that with then him never casting people of color and things afterwards is, even if he's an accidental racist, he has done no
Yeah.
work when it
Yeah.
comes to that, and finds no finds no issue with that. And I think, yeah, as a movie, if you take Peter Jackson out of it altogether or whatever, like, and just look at that as a film, I think that there's just simply thinking about the actual tangible harm, because that's the thing. Like I said, there's a direct line between characters like what's in this movie and the stuff that my husband has been facing since he was on the playground every day.
Mm,
That's what makes it, to me, too real to be
of course,
just like,
objective.
right.
Mm.
And not just objective, but I mean, it's too real to be like, to dismiss it, right? It's the same
Of
thing
course.
that with what's this Hari Kondabalu, when he made the Problem with Apu documentary,
Yep.
um
Yep.
and was like trying to explain this to the Simpsons creators and all of that kind of stuff. Like, when you do this, someone comes up to me and they do that caricature at me. Like, this is what happens as a result of this. And for Peter Jackson, a white man, he sees nothing to this except this is just another target. It's the same
I'd
thing to
love
him.
to know what he said about it in the meantime. I'd love
Right?
to
Like,
know.
has he come
Yeah,
back and
yeah,
been like,
yeah.
that was horribly, horribly racist? I don't know. But whatever his take on it, I think
I
it's,
really would love to
yeah,
know
yeah.
if he's
I would be
acknowledged that.
curious for sure if he's acknowledged that or
Mm.
not, but the movie itself, I think, remains unjustifiable. There's no value in that at all. I think that completely strips it of whatever else it was trying to do when you suddenly start punching down at people who are already punched down upon.
Yeah, yeah. Um, again, through that lens, it is kind of impossible to rebut.
But yes, all that
And
is. Oh, go ahead.
I'm not going to try. I mean, I guess, I mean, the reason why why Meet the Feebles kind of still, uh, I quite enjoyed the fact that it was still making fucking getting walkouts 40 years after the fact, right? I quite enjoy the fact that,
But it's not for like, it's not getting walkouts for jizzing puppets or whatever. It's getting rightful walkouts for
yeah, 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 yeah,
punching
yeah.
down,
The context
it's
of the walkouts has changed.
right. Yeah. It's not,
Mm.
it's not pearl clutching. It's, I can't sit here and watch this movie degrade people. That's why people were leaving the chat as a result of this. So, we apologize for that. Or that it is on both. I could have read the guide like I usually do with things to make sure this kind of
Ooh.
thing is not present, and I was just like, oh, the funny, I remember this was an offensive movie and all my friends like to sing about sodomy. And I was in high school and completely blanked the rest of the stuff that
Well,
was in this.
the polls will be back next time.
Yes. Long
The
story
last
short, we will be voting from this point
it's the
forward.
last time I unilaterally fucking choose the movie the day before.
Indeed, that the Australian movie you were thinking about doing may have been a better choice than the one that we ended up watching.
Yes.
um, but anyway, this week, instead of going through what we have watched this week, we thought that we would update our Halloween recs, because if you recall, in our first year, we not only gave out sort of recommendations for Halloween, but we created our sort of system, which we reference all the time on here, of sort of left column, middle column, and right column horror movies. Left column being the kind of stuff that's like very intro. You can watch it with your kids. It's like super chill. Just sort of baby horror, if you will. Baby's first
It's your
horror.
on-ramp, isn't it? It's the
It's
kind
your
of it's the
on-ramp
on-ramp to horror.
into horror.
Yes, it
Anybody
gives you
could
the
watch it.
taste.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Your Hocus Pocuses and Beetlejuices and things like that.
And which I've been having a great time these past 5 years.
Yeah, like
Enjoying
you've
a new.
actually gotten to introduce them to actual children.
Hmm.
In the middle column is stuff that is, a little more, I don't know, maybe a little more violent, a little more risque, whatever the case may be. It's stuff you could put on with your friends.
Yep.
Um, put it on at a party, put it on a sleepover, whatever the case may be, and have like just sort of a fun time, right?
Exactly. It's not going to damage you. It's not going to harm you. But
Right.
it's
You're not going to take it
you
with
know,
you. You
it's a
might
horror movie.
scream a little while
These are horror
watching it.
movies. Yes.
Yeah, these are horror. Your Bloomhouse kinds of things and stuff in that vein. And then right column is for like horror heads who kind of want to like take
Completely.
it
If
with them.
it's an intentional experience to watch a right
Hmm.
column movie. It's not a casual experience. It isn't
Right.
something that, it's something you seek out. It is
Yes.
something that you do to yourself and as
You
such
inflict upon yourself.
cannot complain
Right.
about. Yes.
And so we did this, 4 years ago for you, gave out some Halloween recommendations. And as Halloween rolls up this week, we thought we would give
Mm.
you some new recs from each column of things that we have watched in the past 4 years. So they wouldn't have been on
Oh,
our
man.
list before this. We wanted to give you new-ish stuff that you can add to your Halloween repertoire.
4 years.
4 years. 4 years
I love
plus.
it. I love
Isn't
it,
that
man. I
crazy?
love
It's
it.
wild
I
every
love it.
time.
All of our cells have regenerated by now. We're literally
Yes,
different
we're
people.
whole different people than we were at that point.
Mm.
Um, and so Mark, shall we start with our left column recommendations?
Yes, by all means. Do you want me to go first? Shall I dive
Yeah, and I'm
in?
very curious if we'll have any overlap anywhere on these lists. But yeah, dive in. What do you
Okay.
got on your left column?
All
Stuff for the
right. Look,
kids.
for a left column on-ramp horror experience, why don't I suggest to you, Corrigan, No One Will Save You from 2023?
You put that in the left column?
Yes, I did.
Interesting. I put that in the middle column, but I did put it
Oh,
on my
you did.
list. Yes.
Huh. Our protagonist is easy to get behind, being a young
Yes.
girl.
Mm-hmm.
The alien is kind of the Gribbly is kind of your traditional kind of gray kind of fantasy
Yeah.
alien design.
Mm-hmm.
There's very little but virtually no juice. There's no gore to it. It's
No, not really.
exhilarating. It's exciting. It's tense.
Yeah, I find it very
Um,
scary. That's why I put it in the middle one, is because I find it genuinely terrifying. But
yep, but
maybe terrifying in a
it's
way kids might
potential
like. Yeah.
fear. It's the fear of
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of what may happen or what doesn't happen or what's about to happen. That's the
Mm,
fear of No One Will Save You. And I think I can picture watching it with a kid and them just, squeezing the hand. It's
yes.
this sits in the left column for me and
Love that. So if you like a sci-fi kind of
yeah,
horror,
yeah, yeah.
No One Will Save You is a great watch. So we'll say left column for that, in which you
Yep.
are watching Caitlin Deaver as she tries to deal with being sort of stalked by this alien invader. And yeah, I loved it. I think I
Yeah.
watched it 2 nights in a row when I saw it.
Oh, you did.
Oh,
It's
by the way, all of
there
these will be written. Obviously, we say the names over and over again, but all of these are in the show notes so that you can look back on them after.
there are the more I think about it, and largely due to this podcast, the more I'm coming to realize is that there's like a cheat code. There are cheat ways to get me to like a film.
Sure.
Um, Long periods of silence, I will
No,
immediately like
well,
the
this
film.
one's got that in spades.
The Evil Dead car shot, top-down shot of a
Yep.
car driving through woods. I like your movie. Just do those
Hmm.
things and
Yeah. His simple man.
and just park the racism
Park the racism.
and I'm in.
Next to JoAG t-shirt, park the racism.
In it.
What else is in your left column?
What else is in my left column? Let's take a little look. Yeah. Are we watching it with kids?
I mean, theoretically, right? And it doesn't have to be like 5-year-old kids. We could be talking like tweens.
Okay. Okay. Then in the left column, allow me to introduce you to Freaky.
Oh, I also put that in the middle column, but totally
Holy
on board
shit.
with that too. Yeah.
Exactly. It's easy to get on board with. Again, it's like it's a romp is what it is.
It
It's a
is a
romp.
romp. It's absolutely a
It's a
romp. If you
romp.
haven't seen Freaky, we have Vince Vaughn and I believe Catherine Newton in a
Yes.
Freaky Friday situation, except that one of them is a serial killer.
Yep, exactly this. And he's excellent as well,
Yeah. Oh my God, he's so
isn't
good.
he?
I loves me some Vince Vaughn.
Yeah, same. I'm sure I've asked you this before, but is he okay in his private life?
Well,
Is he all
he's
right?
yeah, we have talked about this. He's more like problematic in the like he's a dumbass libertarian, but not in a
All
like,
right.
I
Not
don't
in
think
a
he's like a turf or anything
he's
like
not a
that. He's
yeah,
just
okay,
like
okay, he's not a
he's just got
monster.
stupid political beliefs.
I listen, compared to some, I can
Yeah,
deal
he hasn't
with that.
abused anyone or anything like that. I've Googled it a few
Fine.
times. He's fine.
All right. Cool.
As someone that
What
I've
about
had a
yourself?
crush on since I saw Lost World when I was like 9 or whatever, I
Oh,
have to check every now and again.
yeah. Don't be getting any tattoos just yet.
No, absolutely not. Anything else in your left column?
I'm certain there were one or two more. I want to put Lamb in the left column, right? Because no, bollocks. I really bollocks.
What?
I super enjoyed Lamb, right? And it is a horror
Okay.
movie, but it's a horror movie that's almost devoid of horror as such.
Right. Yeah, I
The
would
horror is
call it
in
boring.
again. Nah, man, it's not. It right. I would watch Lamb with a kid in the same way I would watch something like Watership Down or something like Coraline, maybe.
I guess.
It's got that kind of unnerving weirdness to it, which marks it out as a horror film, but one that I think is perfectly cool for a kid to watch.
The themes are so like adult though, and not in a
Yeah.
inappropriate way. I mean in a way that it's like what is there for a kid to enjoy in Lamb? Like nothing happens. These people are constantly bickering over things I don't understand. Like what I don't know
Nah,
if I quite
I think
see
if
the
I I watched movies as a kid that weren't for me, right?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Me too, for sure.
And when I think back to it, and again, I berated those who used kind of Cronenbergian last week, and I'm going to do the same for those who fucking
Oh
ever
my
use
gosh.
Lynchian or Lynch-esque. I fucking
Right.
hate
Yeah.
it. But as a kid, it was always that air of what's that intangible, inscrutable kind of vibe to a
Hmm.
piece that I love more than anything. Right? This kind
Okay.
of I'm into this, and it's weird as fuck, and I know there's something I don't quite get.
Yeah. It's like me with Fantastic Planet.
There you go. Yes. There's
Hmm.
something here that I don't quite get, and it's fascinating.
Hmm.
Maybe Lamb is in the left column that I would have watched as a kid. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. So let's
Mm.
call that a left column depending on the kind of child you have.
Yes.
It's probably I don't think there's anything like inappropriate in it per se.
Nah, not at all. Not at all.
It's just yeah, whether your kid will be interested or not really depends on what their
Yeah.
vibe is.
I would put Host in the left columm. The
Sure.
pandemic,
Yeah,
Zoom
sure.
horror.
Yeah.
Again, just a really fucking good time. Just spooky spookiness. Without anything that's likely to harm
Yeah.
or shock or offend in any way. It's just proper fun left column times that movie.
Nice. I think you went harder on the left column than I did because I was thinking like more, I guess more kid appropriate type stuff, like
Okay.
in terms of like not scaring them too bad. Where I think
Sure.
like stuff like Host, I think could potentially be like that's a couple weeks of nightmares
Yeah. Oh.
afterwards, like there's nothing inappropriate in it, but I think it
Mm,
does run the risk of being too scary was my thought process with it. And that's yeah, so that was my thought. That doesn't necessarily mean these movies are inappropriate for kids. It's just how I was thinking about the left
yes.
column was like they're going to watch
See,
this, they might be a little scared while watching it, but they're not going to take it with them afterwards.
as my two left column viewers age, I'm wondering, is there a fucking fourth column, CoRri? Is there a
Well,
column to
yeah,
the
maybe
left of the left
right.
column,
Yeah, maybe there's
like
an
0 to
on-ramp to the
10,
on-ramp.
teen,
Mhm.
horror? You know,
Yeah.
does this
Yeah,
need
I think that's
revisiting?
the thing is I think if we were to go back to your original left column, it would be very different than the ones that you've just listed
Yes.
because your
Yes,
kids are
yes,
old
yes.
enough to
Yep.
watch other stuff now. So my left column, and even these, I was like, this is a little cuspy because they are a little on the violent side, a little on the scary side.
Yep.
Beetlejuice. I
Yes.
think, we put Beetlejuice in the left column originally. Beetlejuice is scarier and gorier than the original
Mm.
Beetlejuice, but I still think, if your kid can handle it, Beetlejuice is just so much fun.
Uh, I mean, just from a stimulation point of
Yeah,
view, so
right.
much to see
Exactly.
and hear and interact with. It's like a sensory room of a
Yeah,
movie, isn't it?
completely. And I think that's part of why I love it so much, and why it takes me back to the OG. And
Yep.
perhaps similarly to that, the other thing I put in my left column is good old Psycho Goreman, which is,
Oh, okay.
it's kind of it's
Yeah.
deliberately ultra violent and things like that, but also deliberately made to not have like offensive language and stuff like that, using
Yeah,
things like
yeah,
frig off
yeah.
your heroes or children.
We'll talk
uh
about it next week, but I watched his new film actually today, Frankie
oh
Frico. Saw
oh, I
that a
didn't know
little
that was
earlier
him.
on. Yes, indeed. We
Okay,
shall talk about it
interesting.
next week.
All right, sounds good. Um, so shall we move
But
to the
I
middle
completely
column?
agree with PG in the left. I completely agree.
Yeah. Now for the
Middle.
middle column, maybe you can follow along with me. You can decide one way or another. I separated the middle column. This is my biggest column. The ones that you can watch with your friends, the ones that are like chill, like not
Yep.
chill, but like these are fun horror movies,
These are movies. These are
Yeah,
movies to enjoy. Oh,
exactly.
oh,
So go ahead.
Mithrigan on the left, by the way.
Oh, I put that in the middle as well. I
Ah.
thought the murder of children in it was probably a little rough for some kids. That was
Interesting. All
my
right.
that was
Anyway,
my
sorry, I
reasoning.
digress.
A kid getting horribly mutilated by a doll would probably have stuck with me when I was a child, ripping
Okay.
his ear off and whatnot. So mileage may vary, but I separated mine into slashers and serial killers, ghosts and gribblies, and spooky sci-fi. So let's start with slashers and serial killers, shall we?
Go for it.
I put Vicious Fun in this one, a very 1980s vapor wavy, cool neon colored movie from Shudder, in which a guy accidentally finds himself in a support group for serial killers,
Oh,
and
nice.
it goes about as sideways as you can possibly imagine. And it is very goofy and very fun and super violent, but in ways, again, that are just a laugh.
Excellent.
Vicious fun is not going to give you nightmares. It's not Terrifier. It's not going to be like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to throw up. It's just fun slasher bananasness.
Nice, nice, nice.
I had put Freaky here, but obviously we can, somewhere between left and middle. Fresh. Did you see Fresh? You saw
Ah,
Fresh. Did you put that in your
of
middle?
course. You literally you took the word right out of my mouth. Yeah, I put fresh in the middle column.
Amazing. Yeah, Fresh, fun serial killer cannibal flick
Yep.
with, hot
And
leads and
just capital F and just with that capital F for franchise potential as well.
oh, true. Yeah.
It does some super fun stuff in the last few minutes of that movie that just it turns the entire thing on its head. Fresh was great.
Yeah, Sebastian Stan,
Yep.
Daisy Edgar Jones, a lot of fun. Watch Fresh. That's a great like go back to it
Yeah,
every Halloween kind
it
of
is.
movie.
It is.
Um, I
There's
put
so many I would put in the middle column, man.
Yeah, see, the middle column is a big one. There's a lot of we've seen over the past 4 years. We've seen so many really fun horror
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
in keeping with slashers, another one we watched like 4 years ago was Superhost, which
Huh.
was an Airbnb gone wrong movie,
Yeah,
in which an Airbnb host gets a little too
yeah.
involved with the people who are staying in her home, and things get murdery. It was a blast. I think Superhost is a good fun watch for this time of year.
I could not agree more. Do you still want to do slashers and
Yeah,
serial
keep going.
killers?
I'm not done with slash and serial killers. So you got any more in
All
that
right.
area?
I've got quite a few ghosts, quite a few gribblies, quite a few monsters.
Okay, great.
Uh, slashers and
No
serial killers.
more
All right.
slashers.
Nah, I'm gonna put the 2022 stab at Texas Chainsaw Massacre there.
I
Then in
considered
that
that one.
case,
Yeah, I mean that's a
yeah.
fun ride. Come on.
Look, nobody else liked it except me and you, apparently.
Right? We're the
But
only people on earth who enjoyed that movie.
that is not my problem.
And I say, hey, if you haven't watched it since then, maybe your expectations were like, you were
Yeah,
looking for something different than what you got. Although with Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, I don't know how you can have any expectation. They are all
exactly,
so wildly
exactly,
different from each other.
exactly.
There- no
What the
two
fuck?
Texases are alike.
Get over
Uh,
yourself.
but maybe you were in the wrong frame of mind of it for whatever. Try
Mhm.
Texas again. The
Yes.
remake is a lot of fun. Or I guess it's a sequel. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what you would call that.
Uh, I will put the black phone then in this little
Nice.
section here.
I think I put that as ghosts, but it's totally both.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
You
it's both
see
kinds.
my thought process. A
Mm,
just intimate, edgy, tight, authentic, beautifully scripted, creepy ass, fucking lovely little kind of micro horror.
yes.
Big fan of this movie. They're doing another one, aren't they? They're doing another one?
Yeah, I think they are doing a second Black Phone. I
Okay.
follow the writer C. Robert Cargill on Blue Sky, and I think he's talked about that.
Yes. But that the black phone's everything that a middle column horror should be.
Yeah, definitely. Um, the Blackening I put in there. I mean,
Hmm.
come on, it is a horror comedy in which Black people are challenging the horror tropes surrounding being a Black person in a horror movie while also managing to get killed off one by one anyway. What's not to
Hmm.
like? It is a super fun romp
Yep.
that, yeah, can't go wrong with the Blackening.
Uh, that's it for serial killers, I would say.
Okay, let me finish my serial killers then.
Go for
Milk
it.
and Cereal, which we both just watched, available for free on the
Yeah.
YouTube. Just a fun, quick, low budget romp. That you absolutely, if you gather your friends around and watch that, I think it's like built for that experience. Just have your friends over and be like, "Have you guys seen this?" And
Mm.
watch Milk and Cereal, Serial. Um, Good old M. Night Shyamalan and Trap.
Oh, you
Trap
didn't.
is such. I said when I saw it, I was like, this is going to be a Halloween watch. Like, guarantee I'm going to watch this every Halloween. I've already seen it 3 times. I saw it in the theater, watched it once on my own, and then when Keo came home, I was like, you want to watch Trap? So it's so stupid, but so much fun. Josh Hartnett has such charisma. I want to see him play all the serial killers. Um, so Trap, big time. Put that on your Halloween list.
Nice.
Totally Killer, the retro
Uh,
80s time travel one.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, time travel, 80s serial killer horror comedy. Again, up my
See,
alley. Very into that.
you'd think I'd like it with a description like that. You'd think I would have liked it more than
You
I
did
did.
enjoy it. You just fell asleep and then you never finished it.
Okay.
I think you always
Yeah,
forget that. You think you
plausible.
didn't like it, but
Yeah.
you only watched about half of it and
DNF.
you were liking it, and then the text messages stopped and you had passed out. So you don't know how it ended. And my last slasher or serial killer one is Longlegs. That is another one that I think if you gather everyone in the living room and watch, like,
Mm.
it's over the top at parts. You've got, Nick Cage just Nick Cage in, not once, not twice. Like,
That's
it's just
very good.
Thank you.
That wasn't bad. Long legs, I snuck that in on the right
Oh,
because
yeah, see, it's a straddler for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Definitely
it's
a
not one for the
straddles one.
casuals, certainly not.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of if you're like in between, but I think in a group setting, even though it's
Yeah.
a little
Oh, sure.
harder, um, I think it would be a fun watch. Different than like what you sit on the couch by yourself and watch if you're not a horror fan.
I could watch Long Legs right now. I could just hit play and just
It's
start Long
because of
Legs
my perfect
right now.
impression of Nick Cage,
It
isn't
is.
it? It just
It was very good.
made you want to
Yeah.
watch.
Yep.
Let's get to Ghosts and Griblies.
All right. Get yourself in front of the Pope's exorcist.
Ooh, good one.
Come on, tell me
Yes.
I'm wrong.
No,
Tell
I
me
would
I'm wrong.
never, I wouldn't dare tell you you're wrong. Absolutely
Yeah,
watch The Pope's Exorcist. In fact, now I want to watch that.
yep, you'll have huge fun. You'll
Yes.
have three tins and you'll have a great laugh.
Let the record show we saw it with 0 tins and
Yeah.
we had a great time. This is
And what a
turn your
curve. The curve on that film, it was like, okay, what is this? Hate it, hate it, hate it.
Yep, yep.
Oh,
And then oh, hold
what is
on.
this? I'm interested. Hello, wait a
Yep.
second. Oh, I see. Love it, love it, love it. Yeah.
Yeah, turn your
Um,
brain all the way the fuck off
good
and
film.
lean right into it, right?
Yes.
Just decide that you're
Yep.
going to have a good time and you're going to have a good time with Pope's Exorcist.
Yeah, speaking of which, Malignant, right? Now,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
if you didn't like Malignant, the problem is not with the movie, it is with you. If you didn't like Malignant, I don't know what the fuck to say to you. You don't enjoy things that are fun and good.
Well, you know how I feel about it is that I find most of it just boring and annoying. But the last 20 minutes, if you don't like it, then there is something wrong with you for sure. Because the last 20
Yep.
minutes of it is like one of the most fun.
Unreal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, how can you not just be sitting there like laughing with your jaw dropped?
Yep.
So yeah, I'll give you your Malignant.
Thank you. Or let me see. Any more for you? Let's have a look. Oh,
In Ghosts and
yeah.
Gribblies?
Immaculate. Don't care. Immaculate. It was
Why
fun.
would why would you not recommend the better exact same movie that you watched right after that?
Oh, feel free to go ahead and put it on.
I mean, I'm never gonna recommend a religious horror because they're all bad.
Oh,
But
yeah.
if it were going to be between
They're all the
ones
same,
that
aren't
were
they?
the
They're all the
same
same movie
movie, yeah,
for you.
then
Yes, yes.
obviously the first Exorcism is 1,000 times the movie that Immaculate is, which is a waste of time except for the last 10 minutes of it. Um,
Those last 10
the
minutes are excellent.
yeah, right. Yeah, it's doing a lot of work for a movie that did zero work the rest of the
Mhm.
time, and a lead actress who cannot act. Uh, but in my Ghosts and Gribblies, one that I know you don't like, but is kind of a crowd pleaser usually.
Yeah,
Deadstream, another one that I've watched like
yeah.
4 or 5 times now.
I've come to accept that the problem's with me because everybody enjoyed that film
Just
except me.
doesn't, yeah,
So,
something
yeah,
about it doesn't hit for you. But I think most people, Deadstream is just a good time. I enjoy it every single time that I watch it. A good haunted house movie,
nice.
an annoying streamer getting what is coming to him, which if you're like me and find most YouTubers and TikTokers insufferable, it's fun to watch him get tormented. Yeah, and I think the conceit holds up well. He really pulls off this character, and you know how I feel
Yep,
about um found footage is it's only as
yep.
strong as whether or not you
The gimmick,
believe
of course.
the person involved. And so Deadstream I think is a good time if you're looking for a good ghosty movie.
Nice.
One I think you'll also agree with, which it certainly it is, it straddles the line thematically and things like that, but The Night House I put as a
Oh,
middle
for
column
sure.
film.
For sure.
It's not necessarily like a fun time per se, but it's a spooky ghost movie that
Oh, look, it's
makes
a
you
very,
jump.
very effective horror film, is what it
Super
is.
effective. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. You got Rebecca Hall, and come on,
Hmm.
when can you fail with Rebecca Hall?
She's
It's just,
a
come on.
godlike.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm always going to at least give it a shot with Rebecca Hall, and
Hmm.
95% of the time I'm going to be pleased that I did. The Night House, yeah, very spooky. Gets you with jump scares that are well earned in it.
Mm. Mm, good point.
Recommend that. And my final Ghosts and Gribblies is Renfield. That's made for your
Here,
Halloween
here.
times. Yeah,
Yep, here,
like
here.
that is a movie specifically made for you to pop on while you're handing
Mm.
out candy to kids. Just a silly vampire movie with bright colors and Nicolas Cage. Uh,
Yep.
can't go wrong with Renfield.
Yes, very nice, CoRri. Got a
Even with
couple more in this
Aquafina.
column. Yeah, it works in spite of her.
Yeah.
Uh,
Now you got some spooky
Barbarian,
sci-fi.
that can
Oh,
go on there.
sorry, you're still in Ghosts and
Barbarian, let's
Gribblies.
get that on there. Um, His house. Did you catch His
Oh yeah, yeah.
House?
I wasn't like his house is like kind of a rough watch too, so I kind
Oh,
of
it
feel
is.
that's
Yeah,
more
yeah, yeah.
right columny. Yeah,
Possibly. I mean, but it's again, it's a very effective horror film. So if you
right.
go into it
Yeah,
wanting
and
that,
it
that
just
is
makes you
exactly what you'll
feel
get.
sad, and
It
that
does.
is one of the reasons why I was thinking
Yes, it
it's perhaps a
does.
little more right column. But certainly between those two, his house is absolutely a wreck.
Finally for me here, A Quiet Place, day one.
Yes, I can't believe I forgot
Yeah.
to put that in there.
Just
Absolutely fucking love.
excellent, excellent, excellent Griblies, but it's a Gribbly movie that dares to dream, you know?
It does. Boy, get some tissues as well, because
Yes.
I certainly cried a little during that one. Um,
Yeah.
and obviously I put Megan and No One Will Save You in here on my spooky sci-fi, but the one left that I hadn't put up is Nope. Fucking
Yeah, yeah,
love Nope.
for sure.
Scares the shit out of me. Great sci-fi. It is Jaws with an alien.
For
If you have
sure.
not yet seen Nope, great Halloween watch.
Mm.
Big time. Right?
Uh
Right column? Or did you have more middle?
just let's just slide in Talk to Me in that middle column as well.
See, I
Just
put that
let's
in the right.
just
I put that in the right column.
see
It's so bleak was my
it.
reasoning behind why I put Talk to Me in the right column. It is
When
that's what
I share my right columns, I think you'll get a clearer idea
yeah,
as to
a good
where the
one.
delineation is in my
Okay.
head, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So I think, yeah, for me, my right column picks are very much like I feel like if it leaves you like sad or
Yeah,
feeling hopeless,
hollow, empty,
hollow, yeah, things like
rueful, like
that.
you regret what you've done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's kind of my right column. So
But
what have you got?
sort
Or
of in a
if
good
it's
way,
like
perhaps.
yeah, perhaps in a good way. But also things that like I just kind of think are too violent or weird for a casual.
Yeah.
I put in the right column. So even if they're not like a horror fan wouldn't be like, "Oh, that's super far." A casual person would be like, "I didn't enjoy that. Why did you recommend it
Yeah.
to me?"
Yeah. Turn this off.
Yeah, I don't let's watch something else.
All
That's
right.
my
When
right
Evil
column.
Lurks, then.
Oh,
That
Jesus
said.
Christ. Yeah, that's
That's my right column.
definition of right column. Uh,
Um,
most of you have probably
oh
already seen it if you're like a
God.
hardcore horror person, but if you haven't seen When Evil Lurks yet, my God, get ready for a bad time in the best
Uh,
possible way.
it leaves you.
Yeah, demon movie without God, and that's the point, right? Like
Man.
this movie is a very anti-theist movie about
Yeah.
demons, which I think is how it manages to pass the religious horror test with me. It's not the same movies you've seen. What if your demon movie was
Yeah.
completely sans God in it?
Yeah. It's the most horrible and rational demon movie ever.
Hmm.
It's so rational,
Absolutely.
man. It's
Yeah.
told from your point of view. Like it's in your family and in your community, but
Hmm.
there's demons. Oops.
Yeah. When
Yeah.
Evil Lurks is a
Love
must.
it. Oh God.
What else you got?
Oh man, loads. This right column. I would also did you see The Dark and the Wicked?
Dark and the Wicked. I think I skipped that one based on you saying I probably wouldn't like it.
But again, it's demons.
Okay.
Again, yeah, a lot in common with When Evil Lurks,
Okay.
rural America this time. And yeah, what demons in your mum, demons in your farm, demons in your town, demons in your barn,
It's
you know?
it's like a remix of the first Thanksgiving song from Bob's Burgers. The sailors in your mouth. Demons in your mum.
Demons in your barn.
Nice. That was what was that called?
Yep. That was
The
The
Dark and the
Dark and the
Wicked.
Wicked.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Um, I would say I would welcome Alex Garland's Not All Men.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Although, now, like, because of Civil War, I'm just mad at Alex Garland,
I
but
understand.
I do, Men is a terrifying time.
I understand.
Movie makes my stomach hurt. And again, in like a good way, like, ooh, this is a scary
It
movie.
just leaves you. It just leaves you. Oh no.
Yeah, right. And it gets so like
Oh,
it gets
what?
weird in a way that, again, if you were like sitting there
Yeah,
with someone who doesn't watch horror movies, they'd be like, I don't I
yeah,
don't know if I
they
can
would.
look at you the same way after this.
Your relationship would
Yeah.
suffer for watching this film with a norm.
Right. Yes. Is
You wouldn't be
absolutely
friends no
not.
more.
Don't like bring your Tinder date over and be like, "Do you want to watch Men?" Because it's going to reach a point where they're going to be like, "Oh, you're that kind of person." And they will leave. They will ghost you.
Imagine that. Or true
or
love.
or you find out they're really on board. Uh depends on the partner, I suppose. Uh it's a good one. Anything else in your right column?
I keep noticing ones that I've forgotten. Let's put
Ooh.
Lee Juanel's The Invisible Man in the middle column,
Oh, I
please, because
forgot
you'll.
about that one.
There you go. You'll have a lot of
Yeah.
fun. There's a date movie. Take a date to see that instead.
Oh,
Uh,
I don't know
oh,
of
oh
movies
no,
about
actually, no,
domestic
definitely no,
abuse.
don't, definitely don't. Uh,
We're getting up there with like my first like date with my college boyfriend was like Hotel Rwanda. Like you just there's some things maybe don't.
uh,
Don't
love
see
that.
Invisible Man that way, but that is a terrifying movie.
That's really entertained me. All right, back to the right column. Let's see. Censor from
Ooh, good one.
2021. Beautiful British meta horror. Ostensibly about the kind of the video nasty era
Mhm.
in British horror, which, as you know, is very close to my heart. But it's great. Tells a think of it in the same breath as something like Barbarian Sound Studio, something really
Which I've
kind
never
of
seen, but
really,
have
really
heard
again
of.
excellent,
Mhm.
but very close quarters, small rooms kind of horror.
Mhm.
Really, really, really cool.
Yeah, sort of watching someone spiral kind of
Yes,
flick.
exactly that.
Yeah. Kind of in a similar vein, I think stop motion works really well in the right column as well. Just
Yep,
watching someone
yep,
spiral out in really unsettling
yep.
ways, also within the, film related things. She's
Yeah,
a stop
I
motion animator losing her mind as she becomes obsolete.
I recall maybe it didn't work for me as well as it did you, but
I thought you really liked that one.
I liked it, but I don't think I liked it. Liked it,
Okay, fair enough.
you know.
Take it. Yeah, take that. It's got the juice, that's for
Um,
sure.
it certainly has the juice,
Hmm.
and on that note, let's go ahead and put both Terrifier 2 and 3 on, but the only proviso is you have to watch them at the same time. You have to watch them, and not one after another. You have to watch them at the same time on two screens.
It's like a Wizard of
That's the
Oz
only
and the
proviso,
Wall
like a
kind of
Ludovico
situation.
technique. I've got a Clockwork Orange you on Terrifier. If you're going to watch it on Halloween,
You might as
you
well,
have to do them both
honestly,
at the same time.
because there's no story in these movies, so you could
Well, yeah,
very easily just throw
yeah,
them up on two screens and not be missing
yes,
anything. I don't necessarily endorse this, but certainly if you're gonna
do it.
watch it, these are right column flicks.
Yeah,
It was my
as
mom.
is.
My mom sat down and she was watching Terrifier. She says to me, she goes, is there any new movies on the Plex?" And I was like, "Well, Mark got Terrifier 3 on there." And Terrifier 3, okay. I assumed she had seen 1 and 2. Apparently she had not. And I come down a little bit later to like grab a soda and she's like, "Core, this is kind of disgusting." It's like, yeah, it's kind of the thing about those movies. And my mother, who has voluntarily seen multiple Human Centipede
I know
movies, did not watch the
she's a
whole of Terrifier
gorehound.
3. She
Wow.
stopped at
For
uh
fuck's sake, though, to start on. Well, like I mean, it's not like number one holds your hand, is it? Really,
no.
you may as well start on three as
Yeah,
as,
I
as
mean,
any.
and again, it's not like the story is something that's like, "Oh no, I won't understand it." Uh
Well, yeah,
it's like the story is not important to these movies at all.
yep.
It's just a vessel for gore. Uh so yeah.
Speaking of which, in a violent nature, it's come on,
These
man.
are, yeah, just listen, what
Bravo,
I will,
just inventive, brave,
it makes
silent.
you mad, but I will say the
Yes,
difference between in a violent nature versus Terrifier 3 to me is that Terrifier 3 does the thing that you find unforgivable for me, which is does not move me one way or another. I don't hate it.
Oh,
I don't love it. It's just boring and
mm.
forgettable. And
That
it's
is
like
unforgivable.
there's
You're right.
that's the thing with Terrifier 3 for me is I'm just like I
Mm.
just deeply like 3/4 of the way
Not
through the
moved.
movie I was just sitting there and I'm eating a sandwich watching people get like chopped to bits and I was like I just don't really want to be watching this anymore. Like
At that
I'm
point,
not
I
grossed
wonder.
out.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. You may as well be watching kind of true gore on
right.
some streaming site at that point if you
Yeah,
just literally just
yeah, just
having a snack.
not even bothered by it. It
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
move
no
me at all.
point.
Whereas it makes you mad, but the thing about um
Mm.
in Violent Nature is like I thought it was so poorly made that it's funny, and that like that at least is worth a watch to me. You know that I'm like, listen, you're gonna
Can
see
you
one
not
of the
see
worst
past
films
that
you've ever
though?
seen in your life, but
Right.
at least it's
Uh,
something.
I can't remember who, but I've seen people kind of mocking the rubbery makeup and
Sure.
whatnot.
Hmm.
I can see past that.
That's
And
not my issue. That's like, I mean,
oh,
that's the same with Terrifier, right? Like, it's obviously
well, yeah,
rubber when they're digging around in people's bodies or whatever. It doesn't look real. Um,
yeah.
it's not that. I mean, that's just like compounds it that like some of the gore is like very silly bad, but it's the bad filmmaking. That's the thing for me. Just like continuity errors and like
Mm.
bad script and like, just things that you're like, this is like you learn not to do that in film school. And this isn't making fun of the genre because the genre doesn't do this.
Fine,
This is
listen,
you're
fine, I
not good at making
misunderstood.
movies.
But
Yeah.
no, I will always kind of have scorn for those who, in an otherwise earnestly made work, you know what I mean, in a movie that's fucking going for it and trying its best to be something cool. I think to mock a wobbly prop or a a
Right.
shonky
Yeah.
looking hand
Yeah, I watch
prosthetic
much
is missing
lower
the point,
quality shit than
Exactly. Okay,
that.
good, good, good,
Like,
good.
yeah,
Of
it's the
course.
filmmaking that I think is bad, not people giving it their all with that stuff is fine.
Um, Late Night with the Devil, middle or right column?
I would say that's middle, I want
Hmm.
to say.
Very
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah, this is one that it's diminishing returns for me. I've watched it now 3 times, and every time I watch it, I like it less.
I see.
And I like the other movie that's the exact same movie from like Argentina or whatever more than
Okay.
this one. But I do think this is
I've
like again, if you were at a party and you put this on, I think everyone would have a really good
Yeah,
time.
fine. Yeah,
Yeah,
no argument at all.
yeah.
What have you
So
got for the
middle
right
column.
column? Yes.
Uh, right column. I have Soft and Quiet, the white
Ooh,
supremacist women
great
movie.
shout. Great shout.
One of the most feel bad movies I
Yeah,
have watched, certainly in the last 4 years, maybe in my life. Just,
awful time.
yeah,
Yep.
shines a light on the ways in which white women are some of the worst purveyors of racism. And it is harsher than you could possibly imagine.
Mm,
Trigger warning on every conceivable level for Soft and Quiet. At the same time, it is a brilliant movie. So, far right column for Soft and Quiet, uh,
yes.
but great movie.
And
Oh, go
while it's
ahead.
out there, kind of on the far right,
Right.
not like that, but on the far right of our,
Yeah.
um, I guess you'd put it somewhere close to the sadness.
Oh, sure. Yeah, which I obviously
Yeah.
have not seen, but
No.
yes, on
Um,
the scale of things that you're not gonna feel
no.
good after watching.
No, no, that's a few columns past the right column, I think.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
It is its own special column.
a movie that I loved to bits.
Yeah, a lot of
Um,
people really love this one. This is simply one that is in the wheelhouse of things that I do not like,
no, of
but
course, of
from
course, of
everything that
course.
I can tell, if you like that kind of movie, this is a great movie.
And what's the how to fucking characterize the
Yeah, what
sadness?
is the
It's a
summary of this?
just it is a grueling Uh, the best thing about a hangover is when it's over, right?
Sure.
This the feeling of a hangover kind of subsiding is wonderful. It's like, oh man, it's going. The
Relief.
sadness is kind of like that. It makes the kind of morning of vomiting worth it
Right.
because it ends, but the sadness kind of like that, but in a movie, but good.
Okay.
So
That
there you
makes
go.
perfect sense to me, to be honest with you.
Good. I'm glad it did. I'm glad it did.
I put Hunter x Hunter with Devon Sawa in
Yeah,
here.
vague memories of that.
Yeah, sort of a
Wolves.
huh? Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, a sort of survivalist movie guy, moving his family into the middle of the wilderness. And that goes
Oh,
about
maybe I
as
do remember it. Yeah.
goes about as wrong as you can imagine it going. And is deeply and surprisingly violent, kind of in the way of like what's the like Bone Tomahawk, where you're
Yeah,
like,
sure.
you're cruising along, and then you're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It finds
Hunter x
a
Hunter.
hidden gear.
Yeah, I noticed, I went
Mm.
and I was, looking at reviews and stuff like that, and my review simply said holy shit. And then I looked at like the top reviews, and like all the top reviews were just like holy shit or oh my god or things like that.
Yeah.
Hunter x Hunter is absolutely brutal. And I love that Devon Sawa is a scream queen now. So recommend that, but you're gonna get, it's brutal survival horror. Um, so if you're into that kind of thing, do that,
Which we are.
which we are for sure.
Possessor, let's get that on there.
I mean, yeah,
Um,
that's
you
certainly
know, that's gonna take you somewhere. Just a deeply uncomfortable, woozy, hallucinatory, fucking explicit, unpredictable, fucking banger of a movie. Just everything I enjoy is in this film in
right.
some way, shape, or form. Good laugh.
Yeah, it's definitely on the list of movies that it's like I wouldn't say I like this movie, but
Yeah.
certainly, what it's doing, it does.
Yep. Um,
It achieves it.
just to disgust you a little, Bones and All is going on the right column for me.
Is that a right column movie?
Yeah, yeah. To me, it really is.
Okay.
When I think of Bones and All, right, the first recollection I have of that movie is, and I'm not even. This sounds like this is hyperbole, but it is not. Is just gazing at the fucking floor after it ended for the pretty much the entire credits, just dealing with it, just dealing with that
So it's
fucking
the
movie.
vibe that puts it in the right column for you.
Completely, yes.
Okay.
I am struggling to capture why it the fucking Marco that ended that film wasn't the same Marco that started it, right? And that's my
Mhm.
criteria for right column. It's a horror
Yeah, sure.
movie that'll fucking whack you out of your, out of the kind of the furrow that you're in at that moment. And that's what
See, I
Bones and
think
All
this
was
is
for
why,
me. It
yeah,
was,
this is why this doesn't match up in my estimation, because I
mm,
just thought it
you were
was
unmoved. Yeah, I
annoying.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Um,
yeah, I
whereas I was
got you though.
deeply into it. Yeah,
Yeah,
love it.
bones and all.
Yeah. If I,
Uh,
if I were to watch
s-
that in company, then people would think I was a freak because I would be like just super connected to it, man.
right. It's like I think that like on the surface, that's the thing, is like I think normies could watch it. They'd just have like a totally different experience
Yeah,
than your
completely.
experience of it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it would play as kind of like a romance
yeah.
kind of movie
Like
with
like a gritty
violent,
Twilight.
gritty Twilight. Yeah,
That's what it
totally.
is.
And so yeah, the thing that that would be weird about watching it in a group would be you're watching it
Yeah,
on another level than the rest
yeah.
of the
That's
group
it. It's
is.
Twilight, except I'm crying. That's
Yeah,
this movie.
right. I also put Silent Night, the 2021 movie, on here. There's
Mm.
like 97,000 movies called Silent Night. This is the 2021 one, deeply, deeply bleak movie that kind of sucks you in by being like a little, it plays kind of funny, darkly funny when it starts, and then becomes horrific. So
Mm.
you're watching a family who is having their yearly Christmas dinner party. But simmering somewhere under the surface, you're finding that there's something that's going to happen tonight. And they're all sort of getting ready for this thing that is going to happen. And that thing that is going to happen is horrible. It's horrifying. And this movie, I've watched it like 3 times now, and every time it ends, I'm just like, why do I keep doing this to myself? I
Oh
feel
wow.
emptied by this movie.
Oh,
So Silent Night, it's technically a Christmas movie, but it has the vibe also of something that you can do for your Halloween for sure. If you just want
okay.
grim Halloween times, Silent Night gets you there. So
Nice.
your gateway into the
I've
season,
never
like how
seen that
I
one.
always do. I
Yeah,
thought you'd
sure.
seen it, but maybe you hadn't. I always do Nightmare Before Christmas
Yeah.
on Halloween, as it's like the segue into the next season. Silent Night can be one of those as well.
Ah, fantastic. It doesn't ring a bell, and it sounds like I need it.
Yeah, I would recommend watching it if you don't remember it or haven't watched it.
It's a no-brainer perhaps, but The Substance,
Yeah,
welcome to The
clearly.
Substance.
Yeah,
Welcome to the world,
right.
this new baby that we
Instant
have.
on all the lists, the
Welcome,
substance.
welcome.
Come
Get The
on.
Substance in there. That's, I think, bringing us up to date.
Yeah, I think
What else you
what else
got?
did I have? I put Pearl on there. Again, it's not like crazy for a horror fan, but if you showed it to someone who is not into horror, I think they
Yeah,
would be dismayed by the
yeah.
film.
I,
But I love Pearl.
yes. You know my feelings on the three. If I was gonna put one of them in the list, it would be X, of course. But
Which obviously I would
yes,
not, but
you're not
yeah.
gonna win any friends by putting it on. You know what I mean?
Any of those movies are
At lunch,
probably not mixed company.
gonna make you some enemies.
And then I had Evil Dead Rise on there because again,
Oh, of
it's
course.
too
What
violent,
was I
too
thinking? Yeah,
yeah,
to be fun.
yeah, for like casual watching.
Yeah.
But if you're into that kind of thing, it's a fun ride. So have we done it? Have we
I
updated the
think we
columns?
might have, I think we might have. The only thing I would use to kind of bookend this discussion is it's uh it seems like quality horror is just relentless in how quickly it's coming
Mm,
out at the minute.
I know this is a lot
Barely a
of
week goes
really
by on
good.
JoAG. Yeah,
Yeah,
barely a week goes by on JoAG where you and I don't have another little mini classic that we've seen.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
that
I
that
love
that
that.
I think has been one of the yardsticks of something that's improved during the time we've been doing the cast is
Yes, right. Not
the
everything's
state of
getting
the
better, but
genre.
at least
Well, of
we
course.
have so much horror because
Yes.
people like it, and thus people are paying to get it made, which
Yep.
is great. It's reliable, tends to have lower budget than a lot of stuff things are going out, and there's so many places to put it, and we will be there. We show up.
Yep.
So, I love that. Now, we've been talking a long time, Mark. Do
I
we
know,
put
I
your
know. Listen.
do we put your thing off till next week again?
And it's been built the fuck up now, right? That if this isn't like the
You
best
really have to
JoAg
knock
topic of
this
all
out of the
time, I
park.
was like, no, there's just a little topic that I'm
Yeah, it's just a
being like
little
kind of
thing you want to
half
talk
curious
about.
about recently that I'd quite like to JoAg about, that's all.
Yep.
But no, the fifth fucking crack at it next week. We'll talk about it
Yeah,
next week. It's fine.
we're gonna get
It'll
there.
keep.
It'll
Yes.
keep. But we had so much to say about evangelicalism and whatnot this week that,
And the films.
this is this is what this podcast is about. We follow the winds. We
We do.
we just see
We
where
do
it
the
takes
whims.
us.
All right, all right. Have a great Halloween, friend. And
Happy Halloween, our dear friends.
yes,
It is our time. Seize it. Make good use of
yes,
it.
yes.
We love you all. Thank you for
Yep.
being
Drink it
here
in.
and spending time with us.
Drink it in.
Drink it in. And of course, you know,
Stay spooky.
stay spooky.